We are here with Morgan Jon Fox. Morgan is the filmmaker behind the documentary The Hobby. Morgan, welcome to the Film Threat Livecast. Thanks for joining us.
It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Cool. The Hobby is a documentary that is about trading cards, people collecting trading cards. We're not talking about just trading cards. We're talking about Charizard. If you know anything about Pokemon trading cards, that trading card is worth how much, Morgan?
It all depends on the condition these days. Like you got to get them graded 1 to 10, but the perfect 10 condition Charizard in a first edition can go, as high as $300,000 these days.
Yeah, it's
pretty wild.
This documentary was made over the pandemic when the trading card industry just ballooned. Morgan, I assume you're a fan of collecting trading cards. I'm going to guess you're a collector yourself. I don't see how you could have made this movie with the deep knowledge. What got you started making this documentary?
Yeah, I collected as a kid in the 90s, just like sports cards, honestly, at that time. And then I got back to it a little over 10 years ago, just randomly bought like a box of cards at Target and then caught the collector bug again. I'm a filmmaker. I've been making films since around 2002. I made my first feature film, Blue Citrus Hearts. I was living in Memphis, Tennessee at the time. So being a filmmaker who has made both narratives and documentaries, I was working on a project with Neon and XDR as a co-production. It was another documentary. And I was talking to the director of that film at the time about trading cards just randomly because he had bought one or two. And so he understood my knowledge at that time. And then we went to XTR, the production company out in LA. We went to their offices and we were filming an interview for that movie, which is yet to be released. And they, that director told me that they had a documentary on trading cards set up and ready to go and needed a director. And so I literally, he said, I think you should be the director. And he walked me into a meeting. It's one of these Hollywood stories where you suddenly walk into a meeting, you happen to have knowledge of a thing, be in the right place at the right time. And so I had literally like 2 minutes prep to sort of like figure out a pitch in my head really quickly. So yeah, I mean, that's how I got into it. And then my producer, Ted Speaker, who was producing the other film that I was on, he met with them as well. And I had to put together an official pitch after that, a pitch deck and everything. But, I think within a month we were filming. It happened really quickly.
Well, I'll just say this, like, I didn't realize, like, you got me. And you know what? I do have trading cards. I've got like trading cards of the Batman 1989 movie with Michael Keaton. I'll pick up trading cards here. I never really been, but like, look, I've got boxes. I've got like wacky packages. Those were the first times I remember. I was never so much into sports, but wacky packages I love that made fun of, different products. So I've rebought those. I've even bought books with artwork from trading cards. So I don't consider I'm a very, very much a newbie, a novice, or a normie. I just collect things that I like. The people in this documentary, it's crazy, the fanaticism. I didn't realize how incredible. I mean, they're mining for gold when they buy these big boxes. And then you get into a lot of the nuances of people selling like what look like they're going to be sealed sets, but they're not actually sealed, which is crazy. And the huge conflicts that people get into. You were following this drama and also like making the movie during the pandemic. What were some of those challenges following these different stories and knowing kind of like maybe where things would and wouldn't go? And I almost feel like in a way, like you tell sort of the breadth of it, but the story is ongoing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's always the thing with docs. I made one other feature doc before that followed this sort of like ex-gay camp that tried to convert teenagers to being straight or whatever, and so much happened. Like it was like 6 years, right? But like the craziest stuff happened, of course, like after we finally stopped filming. It's always the thing with docs is where you're like, God, if I could only film one more year. It's always intense. Yeah, I mean, there was so much happening. We filmed between 2021 and 2022. Really, we didn't film in the height of it all was in 2020 when it really went wild, and a lot of that we do chronicle in the film. The prices on these things exploded. These like nostalgic pastimes people got back into because the pandemic, and nostalgia is this thing that grounds us, right? So anytime when there's uncertainty in life, people gravitate towards nostalgia, and that's what happened. And then as a result, people, you couldn't go anywhere during 2020. So people were eBay, went wild, and these things literally like skyrocketed. Like it's hard to describe. If we're talking about sports, there's a Michael Jordan rookie card that was already a lot of money, $30,000, a lot, right? Well, during the pandemic, they went as high as $800,000. Like that's how wild, but that went across the board. So Pokemon, I've gotten a lot, speaking of the cards that you're into, I've gotten a lot into non-sport stuff. So I collect like Gremlins cards autographed by Joe Dante. Like that's the type of stuff that I now focus on is movie stuff, because I'm a movie guy, right? But yeah, it was just, anytime something is monetarily wild and out of control, that there's a seedy element that gets involved. So people were faking the Pokemon boxes, those original first edition boxes. People were like opening them and then resealing them, because you can buy those boxes empty online. I mean, they're actually valuable themselves, but people would buy those boxes. And then for the example of what happened that we feature in the doc, Logan Paul, I think, spent $3 million, somewhere in that area, on a sealed case of the first edition Pokemon cards. It was one of the only sealed cases left in existence. And he has a whole video. You can go watch his, but he opens them because there was some suspicion around it. And it was resealed boxes that had G.I. Joe cards instead inside.
Oh,
and so
he got scammed.
I think he got his money back because it had changed enough hands with some other reputable, like, sort of middlemen in the world. And so I think he got his money back. But, I mean, that kind of stuff always happens. People trying to fake stuff or whatever in any world where there's money involved.
I just didn't realize, because my kids were into Pokemon cards, and now I kind of feel like I need to make them watch this documentary. But I'm like you. I've collected like movie cards or pop culture, never into sports so much. I have one sports card.
What is it?
It's number 18, New York Jets, Flash Gordon. Nice. It's Sam Jones. Apparently they actually got a photo of him in number 18. He's the quarterback, New York Jets, Flash Gordon. And I have Flash Gordon's card. It's gotta be but it's the only sports card in my entire collection. But we've got over 1,000 people watching live here on YouTube. We have a lot of questions in the chat. Do you mind like going to some of these questions?
Let's do it.
Let's go. I don't know who posted this, but it says, I once had the complete first and second set of the original Star Wars cards. Oh, that was you. Of course I destroyed them. That's you?
Yeah, I destroyed them like I did my Star Wars toys.
Oh, no. Let's see a question here from Red French Moon, who's a member, says, a question for Sir Jon Fox. Being a collector yourself, was it easy or difficult to get open doors from other collectors, or is there a form of competition among the community?
No, most people, look, in any niche hobby where people collect stuff, your favorite thing is like the opportunity to talk about it, right? Because often a lot of the people in your life, have no interest. They're just like so bored or not into it. So the second someone is like, hey, can we come and like talk to you about this niche thing that you're into, that you like to collect, that your, partner or your close friends probably maybe don't even care about necessarily, you never know. And so many people were really happy to allow us into their lives a little bit and be a fly on the wall to see their day of day. I mean, some of these folks really do this for a living, and others are more novice in the world. But I found everyone to really accept us with open arms and loved being able to show off their collection, which was a lot of fun and cool, because I got to see some stuff that really, I'll never have a chance to own because of how valuable it is or how rare it is. Speaking of those Marvel cards and Star Wars cards that you were mentioning earlier, I have some of those. And there's just some really cool stuff out there that it was definitely really cool to be able to be, to hold and to film.
Oh, you muted, Chris.
I said, it's amazing the access that you got. So other questions here from Solomon Thornton says, greetings, Sir Morgan. What is your favorite cards to collect? Your favorite cards?
Yeah, I mostly shipped it because I grew up as a sports fan in the '90s, and so I did a decent amount of that. And these days, I don't really do that anymore. So I would most of my collection has shifted to non-sport cards. So like my Grail card right now that I finally was able to get is a Gremlins, like a Gizmo card autographed by Joe Dante. Like,
Wow.
in a slab. It's like graded and authenticated. It's not something that they released at the time with the autograph. It had to get autographed by him later. But then these days, there's some stuff that is released, like Harry Potter, for example. They released sets of those autographed by the cast at the time that are extremely valuable. I don't own any of the really valuable ones, but I have some of the, I have like a Dumbledore autograph card that was released in the packs at the time. It's worth like $1,000. It's worth a lot of money, but there are some of those that are worth like 30 to 40,000, for example. So that kind of stuff. The real dream card that if I could snap my finger and I had money to throw around is The Simpsons released cards in the early '90s, and there was 400 limited edition cards that were autographed by Matt Groening and with a sketch of Bart or somebody else on the card, and they're hand numbered out of 400. Those cards go between $10,000 and $15,000. So I do not spend that kind of money on cards, to be clear, even though a lot of people in our documentary do.
Oh, it's insane the amounts of money that are being talked about in your doc. I mean, it's like you're talking about trading stocks. It's nuts. Yeah, one of the craziest things, and it's sort of our way into the doc in terms of, you always try to craft the story to some degree when you're making documentaries. And our way into it was through this one New York Times reporter who had written about a card auction house that had created a portfolio of the top 500 cards and tracked that over 10 years. And he compared that to the stock market, the S&P 500 over 10 years. And that portfolio of cards outperformed the stock market by 2 to 3 times over a 10-year period, which changed everything for people who had big money and wanted to get involved. It's definitely serious for a lot of people, but some people just love to collect. Some people hate that side of it. Some people just want to collect, And last question here from the Nerd Far Away says, hello, Mr. Fox. What is your favorite nerddom? And I'm going to guess that the Nerd Far Away, based on the spelling of favorite, is from the other side of the pond in Europe. So what's your favorite nerddom?
I guess, what does that mean? What is my favorite nerddom? I mean, like card collecting is a nerddom, right?
Right. But like within that, is it like Simpsons, Pokemon, Batman? Like what's the nerddom that's in that?
Yeah, I mean, Sims. To me, it's the stuff I grew up with.
Yeah.
So I love collecting the stuff that I grew up and inspired me. I have a sealed box of Close Encounters, a sealed box of Close Encounters cards that has never been opened. It's wrapped and authenticated. And one of these days I'm going to crack it out because it has Steven Spielberg's rookie card in it. It has his first card. And they're really hard if you want to grade them and get them to say the condition. They're black cards, so they really like chip easily. So in high grades, those are worth a lot of money. But I just love having that. Like, I'm a very nostalgic person. I make films because I love telling stories, and I'm inspired by those movies I grew up with. And so I just like holding those pieces of history that I remember inspiring me when I was younger. Gremlins, E.T., that kind of like the big stuff from back then. I have more niche taste in film as well and art film stuff. But that stuff is what, as a child wooed me and showed me the magic of cinema. So I like to collect that stuff.
All the great films from the 80s. And a question here, Jimmy Francis, a comment, who's a member, says, collecting passions are always interesting. Is the film available for us in Europe? And that's my last question actually is, the trailer, I believe, for The Hobby is on the Film Threat Trailers channel. Check out the trailer for The Hobby. It's amazing trailer. When is the film coming out? VOD, what's the status?
Yeah, so the film came out last Friday. Okay. We're currently the #1 documentary on Apple, on iTunes, however you want to call it. It's available for rent, purchase on Apple, Amazon, and Google Play. I'm going to have to, the Europe question, I don't know. I'm sure there's workarounds. If you can't access those websites, I'm sure you can install something to be able to access the. I don't know anything about that.
Use a VPN. Use a VPN. Use a VPN.
You said it, not me. You said it, not me.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I know it's gonna. I think from what I understand, in May it'll be on airlines. You know, it's definitely gonna get. It'll reach you if it's not there now, and you can't. If you're not creative to figure that out, then it'll reach you soon enough.
So get it on VOD or book a flight. That's the
The
thing. Well, thank you, Morgan. I'm a big fan of pop culture documentaries. You know, we see so many documentaries at Film Threat, and these days, I don't know how you feel about this. A lot of documentaries these days are very political, and they seem like I used to love an unbiased documentary where a filmmaker would say, we're going to seek the truth and see where it leads us. And I feel there's so much sources of funding these days, like say, here's the conclusion we'd like you to reach. And here's the funding for your documentary so you can just tell that story. I'm so disgusted with the world of documentary. That's why, to me, my happy place are pop culture documentaries, right? Because the conflicts in there's a great one where you see this young woman is like, she's opening these boxes, her family's all with her, and she's like trying to justify that she spent a chunk of money on these cards that she's opening. And then you see like it pays off. It's like panning for gold. Like that scene, I love that scene. I love that character that you followed. What was her name?
Well, Danny and Danny has since goes by they them since we
gotcha.
filmed.
All right.
We at the time in filming we were unaware of that, but yeah, Super Duper Danny is this incredible Pokemon influencer that Danny might cringe at that term,
right.
Influencer, but Danny is online and is a personality and goes to these like shows and opens packs and has been doing it since they were 13 years old, like on YouTube. Right. So they have this whole catalog history that's pretty incredible. And it has this collection that's worth a ton of money, but just because of how long they've been in it, right? And so like super and such a great personality. So super duper Danny on YouTube and Twitch and all those things. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that pop culture documentaries are so fun, and just to be able to revel in that and see, and especially if you find that thing that you're into that you get to see a whole documentary on. I mean, how fun is that? So it was definitely really a dream to be able to make this. And again, like I said, like right place, right time. I'm happy that XTR and Documentary Plus wanted to make this film. And I just feel lucky that I was the one that stepped in that office just at the right time.
Oh my God, it's perfect. It's perfect. Because a lot of these stories you hear like, oh, I struggled, I did this. It's like, no, I was at a meeting and suddenly I'm directing the movie. So congratulations. The Hobby.
Thank you.
Check it out on VOD. Coming soon to Europe, or maybe a VPN, you can figure it out. But Morgan, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah, right. Huge film threat, a huge Film Threat fan for through the year. So thank you all for having me on. I really appreciate it today. And I hope everyone checks out The Hobby.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
And,
thank you.
Come back when you've got another doc too.
I'd love it. I really love it.
Okay. All right. Take care later.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.